Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Can We Talk About It podcast. And today we're going to have a long one because I am going to address two things specifically. I'm going to address the fact that Erika Kirk wants a speedy trial. She invokes this rare Utah law that most people don't ever use to speed up the trial of her husband's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson. And then I want to talk about the worst mistake that TPUSA could have ever made, which was sending a cease and desist letter. This has Ben Shapiro written all over it. So we're going to talk about why I think that is. I'm going to give you guys some examples of that. But first, let's get into this piece right here. Again, whoever is advising her, and it's so interesting because Candace Owens said on her show yesterday that she thinks someone hates Erika Kirk and is setting her up for failure so that they can get into position. And honestly, when you think about it, it makes so much sense. But this is not a good look. This is not a good look for her to say, don't take your time thoroughly investigating every lead. Instead, I want to close this chapter of my life. I want to move on very quickly, and I don't want any more complications. This is a problem. So I took the liberty of trying to understand what it actually means for the prosecution to request a speedy trial, which is very different than the defendant. So, Utah law explicitly gives crime victims the right to a speedy disposition of charges and a trial free from more unwarranted delay. So, what this basically means is that you, at any point, you can say, "Hey, you guys are taking too long, or you're doing too many investigations, or you're unnecessary delay of game, so to speak." So, one of the incidences that's listed is that they're trying to get the prosecutor thrown out because they feel like the prosecution is biased already, right? So the defense is doing this. And Erika Kirk is saying, no, 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 we don't want you to do any of that. Erika's attorney argued that certain tactics by the defense are delaying the case and that those delays are unnecessary. And so basically they're asking the court to recognize her right to proceed without unnecessary postponement. Now, what it's basically saying is you guys need to consider me. You guys need to consider Erika Kirk. You need to understand the TPUSA family. And it basically is an attempt to encourage the judge to move forward with the case promptly and avoid what they're calling avoidance tactics because they're worried about stretching the timeline. So on the surface, the generous take on this is, yes, oh my gosh, this poor woman is grieving. She just wants to get this over with. The longer that Tyler Robinson is on trial, the more she has to think about this. So she's basically saying, we want this case to progress without unnecessary delays and get to trial as soon as and as fair as a prepared trial can be set. That's the generous take. Now, because I don't have a generous view of TPUSA or I don't have a generous take on Erika Kirk, I went ahead and I asked ChatGPT. I said, listen, if I had nefarious motives, why would I ask for a speedy trial? Because I had my own ideas, but I'm not an attorney. So I don't know if it even makes sense. And I was pleasantly surprised that ChatGPT basically agreed with me. So this is what they said. If you have nefarious motives, if you are someone who is not working in good faith, number one, the faster the trial, the less opportunity there is for the narrative to change, right? Now, if Tyler Robinson's lawyer is in fact a good attorney, there are so many things that are wrong with the investigation that the more time that goes by and the more that Candace speaks out, the more the attorneys have to defend their client. So I think for Erika Kirk and TPUSA, they're realizing that Candace Owens has more information than she ever let on. And the more they let Candace Owens and Coach Colin and Wolves in Finance speak, the more evidence is going to be introduced to the attorneys for Tyler Robinson, and he very well may get off on this trial. He very well may get off because there's so much information now out about what a poor job the police officers did. If the defense is any good, they're looking into that thing. They're looking into, okay, when were they able to find the weapon, and where did they find the weapon? And what about the fact that we saw Tyler Robinson at a Dairy Queen or at this restaurant, 3 hours away? So I don't think Erika is acting in good faith here. I think she and her attorney are realizing, oh boy, we better get a lid on this information very quickly and get this trial started very quickly because there's more information coming out. And if indeed Tyler Robinson did not act alone, then people are going to find out, specifically the attorneys. Excuse me. So the second reason why Erika Kirk would ask for a speedy trial is, again, preventing any further discovery or investigation. If they start the trial, it's really hard to introduce new evidence, right? So she's wanting to get this thing going immediately so that she can lock in that testimony. They can lock in their evidence. They can lock in what they know. The longer we wait, the more financial records, phone data, digital evidence, people's cell phone evidence can be introduced because they haven't locked in the evidence yet. This is a complex case, although they're trying to pretend like it's not. And in these complex cases, time is information. So again, everybody thought that Candace Owens was just crazy. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's lying. And now, October, November, December, January, 4 months later, we're realizing, oh, shoot, she has more. And every single time she does a show, it's like, what is she going to say now? And what information can the defense use to support their client? Now, this third reason why she might do this, I found interesting. I didn't really think about this, is it will force everyone to make a judgment call now. So right now, the public still, I don't know. I know we're in a different world, you guys. We're in our own little bubble, but I do think that the public still has this very soft heart for Erika, and especially a soft heart for Charlie. I do think the public is still there. And the prosecution wants to take advantage of that, right? They want to take advantage of the fact that people still see Erika Kirk as a grieving widow. They're still endeared towards Charlie. They want justice for Charlie. And so the sooner that we can get a conviction, the better, because the more that time goes on, of course, hindsight is 2020. There's more clarity. So people are going to start to say, wait a minute. Okay, all this stuff is coming out like, yeah, we're sad that Charlie died, and yes, Erika's grieving, but okay, if Candace Owens starts coming out with information about sex trafficking and the Romanian angels, that can mar the perception of Erika Kirk, which will mar people's perception of her as a victim of a crime. Like, be for real, you guys. Do you guys really think people are going home and not going online? Like, the jury in this case is going to be so difficult to find because there's so much information out there that, yeah, I mean, I hate to say Erika Kirk was right. There's so much information out there that you're going to have to find someone who doesn't have a preconceived notion of Erika Kirk. And that's going to be very difficult because if someone has a preconceived notion of Erika Kirk, what they're thinking is this woman, this story is not completely true. And we don't want to convict Tyler Robinson unless I know it's completely true. There's something fishy with this woman. I haven't trusted her since she became and replaced Charlie rather than honoring her husband, whom she never cared about. What do you think about no pregnant photos of EK? I do think that's interesting that there aren't any photos of pregnancy. I do believe her when she says she strikes me as the kind of person who probably like gains 50 or 60 pounds when she's pregnant and doesn't want to be seen in public. So that I can see, but I do think it's strange. Like, I think, like, a lot of, celebrity couples will do, maternity photo shoots, and the fact that they didn't do any, I just thought was really interesting. The other interesting piece about her was that photo that she shared, that Andrew Colbert shared, and that child was very big. That child was a toddler. He was not, he was not a baby, and so her saying she was with her kids, I was like, "Wait, that those children are the different ages." So it was just really weird, like, there are definitely some strange things when it comes to Erica Kirk. So that's why it's important to the prosecution, that they get this case wrapped up, because the public perception of Erica Kirk is changing, and if the public perception of Erica Kirk is changing, people are less likely to believe this narrative that she simply, is a grieving widow. They're starting to ask more questions, and if they're asking more questions, that by default means that there's reasonable doubt for whether or not Tyler Robinson actually, assassinated her husband. So Erica Kirk has plenty of reason, besides just being a grieving widow, to ask for a speedy trial. High profile, cases are, the public opinion in high profile cases is really important. It's an important piece of that. And the more that, again, Candace, Coach Colin, um, these other wolves in finance, the more these people come out with information, the worse it is going to be for them. So this is really about getting this case over with before too much information comes out. And I think it's because Candace Owens is close to something. I know right now she's all over the place in terms of her videos, but I think Candace Owens is close to something, and that's why they're trying to shut this down so quickly. Because if something explosive comes out, such as the fact that 3 people have now claimed to see Erica Kirk at Fort Huachuca the night before, if something like that, if they can provide evidence for that, that is a big deal. That will change the way that people perceive Erica. That will change the way they perceive um, this trial. Because why are you at Fort Huachuca with Cabot Phillips the night before your husband died? Why are you, or the day of, or at this hotel? Why are you at this hotel, the Candlewood Suites? So if that information comes out, it will change the way that people view her, and she just simply cannot have that. She is already, a mess, honestly. She's already just a terrible CEO, might I add, right now. She's not acting in good faith, and I actually don't think that she's running the company. I don't think that she's running, TPUSA, and I think she's being told what to do. And I'll tell you, when I get to talking about, wolves and finances, why I think it's Ben Shapiro and Ben Shapiro's donors running the company. I don't think that this is anywhere near the TPUSA that we had before. So I'm going to wrap up this section right here. Um, she's full of crap. Yeah, I mean, I don't, she's actually, I will tell you guys, and I've said this before on this channel, that I actually had a soft heart for her initially. Um, and then I started to watch her behave, and I was like, something's not right. And I'll tell you guys what really got me. Candace Owens played the interview of Erica. Erica had an interview like many, 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 many years ago. And the cadence in which she spoke was the cadence in which I'm speaking now, right? It was like she was speaking at a regular tone, she was speaking at a regular cadence. It's like she was talking about something that she was familiar with. In the interviews that I see her now, it's almost like she has to think about what she's saying because it's not true. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Let me see if I, and this was like totally not planned, you guys, and I hate when I like when I go off script, but I heard her interview and I said, that doesn't sound like the Erica Kirk now. It sounds like Erica Kirk right now is really having to struggle with like how to say things and make sure everything's right. Um, and I think it's, and to me, that happens when you're not being truthful, because when you're truthful, um, you don't have to like think too much about what you're saying. It's just rolling off your tongue. Let me see if I can find this. I don't think I have the audio of that. I'll save that for a different day because I wanted to do a separate video on like what happened to her voice. Because when she was giving this interview about everyday heroes, she was talking like this, da, da, da. And now everything she says is like, and it's all very scripted and target, and it just doesn't sound like her. And that's when I was like, okay, something is amiss. All right, so let's get into the wolves and finances. Um, Before I get into that, I want to ask you guys a question. Do you guys remember? And listen, I'm not a fan of Nick Fuentes, okay? Not a fan of Nick Fuentes. I too, just like Candace Owens, thinks he's a Fed. Okay. But do you guys remember when Nick Fuentes said that when he was a super tiny creator, like super, super, super tiny creator, that Ben Shapiro sued him? Do you guys remember that? And he was like, that was to me, it was very weird because I was like, why are you suing me? I'm such a small creator. You're actually blowing me up. It's taking the opposite effect. And so I was like, wait a minute. It wasn't Ben Shapiro that sued Nick Fuentes. It was Ben Shapiro's overlords. It was his handlers. And I think that's what's happening with wolves and finances because the handlers are out of touch with reality. As Candace Owens said, they should probably hire her for work. The handlers are out of touch with reality. They don't realize that if you send someone a cease and desist letter now, in this day and age, it blows them up because they will make a video about it and then their channel blows up. And so more people are looking at his content versus if you had just left him into obscurity and just let him alone, he would be fine. But the overlords, the Ben's overlords are the same overlords that sued Nick Fuentes, and now Nick Fuentes has millions of followers, right? And Ben Shapiro can't keep his name out of his mouth. The same thing's going to happen with Wolves in Finance. So whoever the donors who are running TPUSA, the same handlers that are Ben Shapiro's handlers, are going to run TPUSA into the ground because this is not a thing that Charlie would have done. See, Charlie would never send people cease and desists, right? That's the first thing. Charlie would never do that because he would just have a conversation. He would just say, hey, oh, wait a minute. Did this really happen? Let me go see if these employees were actual ghost employees or if we wrote their names down wrong. So that's the first mistake is that Erika Kirk, and I think it was very obvious, and you guys, we all knew this. When Erika Kirk allowed Ben Shapiro on stage, we all know that it was because Ben Shapiro's handlers are now running TPUSA. Can we all agree with that? Can we all just say that that's the truth? That's what's really happening right now. It's not that, it's not that Erika Kirk, these new donors are, doing something special or no, it's because Erika Kirk is now being controlled by Ben Shapiro's donors. And that's why they keep making the same blunders as Ben Shapiro. Right. Have you guys noticed the mirroring that's happening between the Daily Wire and TPUSA? Yeah. Okay. So now let's listen to his video, Wolves in Finance, because I want to talk about a few things that he mentioned in here. All right, so this is Wolves in Finance. He is an accountant, and he is the one who received the first cease and desist letter. And he will tell you guys this, but I'll say it again. When someone sends you a cease and desist, it's basically because they're gearing up to sue you for defamation. Now, again, TPUSA are being foolish because if you send a cease and desist letter to someone, they can refute the claims that you're making. And they can prove that they are correct. And this completely backfires because what we realize is that TPUSA has been lying. So I'm going to let him tell it, and then we'll talk about it.
I view this letter as a threat to sue, and I think any reasonable business person would do the same. A cease and desist letter is the first step towards a defamation lawsuit. I interpret this letter as Turning Point telling me to shut my mouth or they're going to sue me. I do not understand what Erika Kirk is doing. Out of the hundreds of people posting on social media about Turning Point, why are they targeting me? Why are they so worried about what I am saying that they're sending me legal letters?
Okay, this is a great question. Why not Candace Owens? Why not Coach Colin? Why not even Valhalla VFT? Why not all the hundreds of YouTubers that are making content about TPUSA? Why this? His channel is relatively small, right? 37,000, 379,000. I think it's, to me, that's big because I only have 2,000, but 300, I guess that's relatively small in relation to Candace Owens. But why him? Because he's digging into something that is messing with their bottom line. And he's going to talk about that. That's why. That's why not Candace Owens. First of all, they're terrified of Candace Owens. Candace Owens was Charlie's kill switch, and she has information that people would people cannot, they will never, ever, ever speak poorly about her because she will come out with information. She's been in the game too long. You guys have to remember that she was there as a little seedling with Charlie.
I am one of the smallest YouTube channels in my market segment. Who do they think I am? I'm a working accountant with a small YouTube channel. I have no money. I have no power. I have no influence. I don't know how much money they think they're going to get from suing me. All I have is the truth. And I'm not going to stop speaking the truth because Erika Kirk doesn't like it. The one good thing about a lawsuit is that everything will be out in the open, and Turning Point will quickly find out that I have nothing to hide. The letter came from a lawyer named Paul Edgard Harold from South Bend, Indiana. It seems like this is Turning Point's lawyer. I looked him up, and I cannot find that he has been admitted to the State Bar of Arizona in order to practice law in Arizona, so I'm not exactly sure how he's going to sue me in Arizona, but maybe he's working with other lawyers. In the letter, they order me to, please confirm that you will publicly correct your false statements immediately. This is not what I was going to talk about this week, but Turning Point is demanding that I communicate their statements publicly. So here we go. They include a whole list of statements they claim are false that I have made in my videos about Turning Point.
See, and this was the foolishness that again, whoever is, and I'm disappointed because I'm like, these attorneys are terrible. If they were smart, they would leave it alone. But what you're going to see right here is that Wolves in Finance is going to prove that he was telling the truth.
Now, I'm not interested in spreading false information. So I'm glad that Turning Point reached out to me because if I said something wrong, I am happy to correct it. So let us go through the statements where they have a problem. And you're going to want to hear this because some of these are wild.
This year, we opened 2 new restaurants while running, how many?
5 others.
5 other restaurants.
On November 16th, I posted a video called Bombshell, Did Turning Point USA Commit Fraud? They say these are false claims. Charlie Kirk ordered a Doge-style audit that was never conducted. Here's my first problem with this letter. They do not include the actual quote that I said in the video. This is a paraphrased statement of what I said, and they are saying that the paraphrased statement is a lie. You have to tell me exactly what I said that was supposedly a lie, and they do this through the whole letter. So my request to this lawyer in future letters, because I'm assuming there's going to be more, please include the actual quote that I said so that I can respond to your accusation.
And this is how you know that this is a tactic and not an actual. So, because oftentimes when people send cease and desists, particularly large corporations, they're fear tactics, right? Especially if someone is genuinely, like as this guy said, he doesn't actually have a quote. You have to actually say exactly what they said word for word and say tell the person how to, like, that they need to correct that. So this was really meant to just scare him, which actually is worse for TPUSA if you think about it. If you think about it, it's worse for them to have illegitimate claims in a cease and desist letter, but to send it out anyway. What that tells me as a normal, regular, non-legal human being is that you're terrified of what this guy has to say. Or that you're a very lazy lawyer. That you're very lazy. Either one.
But I'm going to at least try to interpret what they are saying. I spoke in my video about a memo that Charlie Kirk wrote 8 days before he was murdered. In the cease and desist letter, they say, indeed, Turning Point USA's COO announcement concerning the Doge effort never used the word audit. So this is breaking news. Turning Point's attorney has now confirmed that the Charlie Kirk memo is authentic.
You see what I'm saying? Foolish. They confirmed because it was like, was that even real? There were questions about what the authenticity of the letter. Is this a real thing? Was this something that Charlie actually wanted? He was not auditing. It was a very different audit than what we had. Do you guys remember all the lies they were saying around that? It was not like we always audited the company. Now it wasn't a Doge style audit. Your attorney just admitted that the letter was real. which means that this was in fact something different from what you guys had done in the past. You see, this is what happens. No, see. Oh! This is why you have to be careful about going after people when you're in the wrong, because you will get exposed. They denied and denied this Doge audit for months. Oh no, that's not what it was. It was the normal audit every year. And their attorney goes, "Yeah, that was an audit. That was a letter. That was a Doge letter." Stupid people at TPUSA. They're just running the company into the ground. Just idiots.
We now have legal confirmation this did happen. It seems like their problem with my video is that I called it a Doge audit, when in the memo it is written as Doge effort.
And do you see? It's the tiny details. So when you do this kind of thing, when you send out a cease and desist as a company and you choose the word audit versus effort, what they were hoping is that he would never read that letter. They were hoping that he would never read the lawsuit and that he would just go, "Okay, I'm going to take down my videos." That's what they were banking on, is that he would take down his videos and not say a word. Unfortunately, okay, this guy to me is also a little spectrumy, which I love. I love it. And these kind of people you don't mess with because they do have the time of day, okay? This man had the time to go through your finances, baby. He has the time of day to go through a letter. The fact that you didn't understand that, because again, you guys don't read people. You guys can't understand human beings because, as Candace said, you guys act like robots. So you don't understand the kind of person that you're dealing with. You messed up. This man does have the time of day. He strikes me as the kind of person, quite frankly, if he was like one screw loose, he would be a serial killer, because he has that sort of like particular, very pointed, measured, detail-oriented, organized personality. Yeah, this man's going to go through your whole letter. Okay? Yeah, this man's going to go through your entire letter, word for word, line by line, because he has a little bit of a problem. I like I've said before, you guys, I like my people with I like my accountants a little strange. Like, I want you to be a little weird. I love this for him, because they thought he was going to be some regular Joe Schmo who wasn't going to look at this and who was going to back down because they wrote him a cease and desist. And he goes, "Oh no, I got time today. I have time tonight. I'm going to spend all night scrutinizing this letter, reading through word by word, line by line." That's his job. He's an accountant. He goes through things line by line, make sure everything's in perfect order. And you messed up, TPUSA. You messed up. I also wonder why Arizona is not investigating. I also wonder, I don't know where Wolves in Finance, is he in Arizona as well? The guy from Wolves, the accountant. I thought he was, because I think he drove to one of the sites. He drove to one of the PO boxes. So I thought he was in Arizona. And I find it very interesting that oh, you mean the state of Arizona? Oh, chow, no. The reason why the state of Arizona is not investigating is because they're tied in with TPUSA. There are videos. There's a paper trail of TPUSA funding a bunch of politicians in Arizona. So that's why they're not investigating. They can't. There is so much fraud running through that company. There's so much money running through that company that is illegitimate and being funneled to politicians. There's no way. There is no way. What they would have to do is find someone who has not been funded by TPUSA to actually run the audit. And I think it would be very difficult to find an attorney general or someone, someone who is going to do that. I think it's going to be very difficult, because TPUSA has basically purchased the Arizona government, for lack of a better term.
They want everyone to use the word effort and not use the word audit. This letter is seriously hurting my head. Whatever word you use, the memo is clearly talking about an evaluation of Turning Point. But we cannot use the word audit. We have to call it an effort, or they are going to sue you. The letter goes on to say, the announcement makes clear that Turning Point USA was doing what it has always pledged to donors, ensuring it was being efficient with its funds and time and making changes to foster greater efficiencies. Moreover, Turning Point USA hires a third-party audit firm to conduct an audit every year. This is all just their opinion. This is how they are interpreting Charlie Kirk's memo. They think that Charlie Kirk wrote this memo, and they think it means that they do not have to do anything. How convenient. They think that Charlie Kirk wrote a memo just to tell people to keep doing business as usual. Well, my opinion, and the opinion of many other people, was that Charlie Kirk's memo meant something different. This is not a statement of fact. It is an opinion. This is another problem I have with this letter. Most of the statements they mention are opinions, just like this one. If you are going to accuse me of defamatory statements, they need to be facts, not opinions.
Exactly. Again, exposing themselves because he was never meant to read this letter. He was never meant to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. He was only meant to be fearful. This was only meant as a tactic to shut you up. This is what Ben Shapiro does. This is what the Daily Wire does. This is what all the big companies do when they want you to be quiet. They send you a cease and desist and they hope that you don't read it. Opinions are not facts. Opinions are just opinions. You are allowed to have an opinion. Now, he probably needs to use the word allegedly more than he wants to, but they're just opinions. Candace was right. Candace was right about what? I think Candace was right about a lot of things. I think she's right about a lot of things. I think she was right about Andrew Colvett. I think she's right about, she won't say it yet, but I think she's right about Erika Kirk. She's not going to say it yet, but I think she knows. She knows that Erika Kirk was a honeypot. Yeah, I think she was right about Charlie's audit. I think Charlie found out that the company was acting unfavorably. The money was being funneled to politicians illegally, and they were doing things unethically. And I think he found out, and that's what that letter said. I don't think that's why he was killed, though. I think he was killed because of a different reason, which I'm going to make in a separate video.
If I have a fact wrong, let me know and I will happily correct it. But I will not change my opinion of this memo to whatever you want. But since it is so important for Turning Point, I have no problem with specifying that Charlie Kirk's memo used the words Doge effort, not Doge audit. The next statement is, someone at Turning Point decided not to file 990 forms. At the time I made that video, those forms were not publicly posted. Those forms were posted after I made that video, and I've already made a correction about that. The next statement is, in 2023, $650,000 may have been funneled from Turning Point USA through Turning Point Action to Turning Point PAC to evade campaign finance restrictions. They are referencing this chart from my video. They claim money actually went from Turning Point Action to Turning Point USA as a reimbursement for event expense. There was nothing nefarious about that transfer. I'm not sure they are contradicting what I am saying. According to their own statement, Turning Point USA used their own donor funds to pay for an event on behalf of Turning Point Action, freeing up Turning Point Action funds, which they then transferred to Turning Point PAC. They are saying that later, Turning Point Action reimbursed Turning Point USA for that event. But that doesn't change what I was saying. Additionally, in my video, I specifically said, again, this is not necessarily illegal if they structure their transactions correctly and utilize campaign finance loopholes, but it certainly looks unethical.
Bingo. So again, they're exposing their own. This is what I was saying. This is why Arizona is not investigating, because there are. So TPUSA was, I think we think of it as like more of a national organization, which it is, but it was very strong locally. TPUSA, their political action committee was strong locally. So they have they were funding all kinds of people locally. I don't know how much Charlie Kirk actually knew about that. I wonder how much of that was Tyler and Terrell, but that is why Arizona's not investigating, because they were doing this robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, when it comes to their fund, so that it didn't look like they were paying politicians, but they were. I want to move on to this one. This will be the last
video, if that makes them more happy. I already changed it from more fraud at Turning Point USA to more fraud at Turning Point USA, allegedly. The next statement is that America's Turning Point had ghost employees.
And this was the one where they shot themselves in the foot.
The letter explains, America's Turning Point had 80 employees in FY23 and 108 in FY24. There was, however, an inadvertent error in America's Turning Point filing, which failed to note these employees, and America's Turning Point is in the process of rectifying that inadvertent error. So I was right. There was something wrong. They did put incorrect information on the 990 form. There were missing employees they were not reporting. They have confirmed it. And just to be clear, this was not some minor mistake. This was around 80 employees that were somehow missing.
I can't help but laugh, because it's like, how stupid can you be to publicly admit that, it wasn't 5 employees, it was 80. Okay, let me just generously say that they're getting paid $40,000 a year, okay? 80 employees, $40,000 a year, right? How much money is that? $3.2 million. $3.2 million. That's generously. That is generously saying that's because they're getting paid $40,000. $3.2 million on ghost employees. Oh, we made an inadvertent error of 80 people. So what you admitted to was tax fraud publicly in a legal letter. And if you were smart, you would have just never responded in the first place. But 80 employees missing, now they have to go scrounge up 80 people to pay. I'm curious about how they're going to fix that. Because again, it wasn't like they put 24 instead of 34, right? It was 104 to 24. So it's one thing if I like mistyped like 44 or 34 or 24 or 14. No, you missed 80 people. That was not a mistype. That was a purposeful situation. This is why Charlie Kirk had a Doge audit because of this.
Their complaint is that it's not correct to use the term ghost employees. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that opinion, but that is their position. I find this incredible. How are they going to sue me for this? They admit that I am right that the employees were not reported correctly. They don't like the wording I used. How is that defamatory?
That's the sound of an...
No, he's right. So again, what we're seeing here is just a company that is desperate, just desperate to shut down anybody, right? They see that Candace is using his information. They see that other YouTubers are using his videos, and they see that they're sharing them and that people are investigating them. And it's just an attempt to shut people down. But we are no longer living in the world of, we're not litigious fear. People are no longer living in that world. We're going to investigate things, find out the truth, speak the truth. And you're not going to stop people with your little lawsuits. You're just not going to do that anymore. And particularly if your lawsuits are not legitimate. So TPUSA keeps making these blunders, and you just wonder, like, how are these people still being hired? How are these people still working? This entire thing is backfiring. But here's what I think, and I'll close with this. TPUSA stopped being about the people when Charlie Kirk died. And TPUSA will continue to run because the donors are paying so much money to keep the company alive. The name TPUSA already has a strong reputation. And so it doesn't really matter if Charlie Kirk's in charge or Andrew Colvett or Erika Kirk, because they're not running the company anyway. They're simply the face. They're simply the face of the company. So TPUSA is long gone as an organization that actually cared about people, as an organization that had meaning, as an organization that had soul. And by soul, I mean Charlie Kirk was a human being, and he had a conviction to do the right thing. He didn't always get it right, but he had a conviction to do the right thing. And when your company is now run by soulless foreign action groups and donors whose interest is foreign aid, you have lost the company. TPUSA has become an arm of the government, and they are simply there to protect themselves. They are not here for the American people. And if Erika Kirk wants to save her reputation, maybe she doesn't care. She has so much money, she doesn't care. She will jump ship. She will dissolve this company. And someone else will have to start something over. But the company as it stands right now is in shambles, and it is being run by foreign invaders. All right, you guys, thanks for listening, and I will see you guys in the next one.